Welcome to Tentative Title with Tim. This is a podcast about creativity, about process, about filmmaking, and about screenwriting. Welcome everybody back to the podcast. So today in the United States, it is President's Day, and many people have the day off, which is great. So that should be an obvious sign of what the topic is going to be today, which is going to be about the role of president in movies. And sometimes we can write what we wish a president could be into our stories. They can be far more idealized, far more passionate about the issues that we care about. So it gives us a chance as creators to sometimes create the ideal version of the president that we wish we had in our own country. And but it doesn't have to be. Like there's been plenty of president characters that are completely off the wall and are not what we ever wish would be running our country. So I just wanted to kind of start there with the fact that, you know, there is a lot that can be done to idealize the role of what it means to be the president of a nation. And I'm not specifically talking about the United States, although there are a lot of films that focus on running for president, on being president, on all the kind of like Washington, kind of shenanigans, I guess you could say, that happen around the presidency and being president, both in a comical way and in a conspiratorial kind of like the having a character that is not actually who they say they are. There's a comedy that came out back in the 90s called Dave, where, you know, this guy who happens to look exactly like the president is pulled in when the president suffers a coma, and he has to pretend that he's the president until the actual president is pulled out, or not pulled out, but like until he wakes up. And while he does that, while he's kind of playing president, he realizes the responsibility of what it means to have that role, and he ends up doing a lot of the opposite of what the other president would have done, and actually helps a lot of people, and really becomes a popular president because he is essentially an everyday Joe who gets thrown into the position of being president, and he kind of is able to peel off the the red tape, or all the roadblocks that are in the way, that he kind of just looks through it and says, if we do this and this, like we can get this done. It's not that it's not that big of a deal, but like he doesn't play into like the whole game of like politics. I highly recommend it. It's a really great film. It stars Kevin Kline, and he does a great job. So, and there's also a bit more serious, but kind of like a comedy, like The American President, where just the president is widowed and he's looking for he falls in love, and he's like figuring out how he can date somebody while he's the president, and the complications that come with that. And so there's all these ways in which all these different versions of a president. And then of course there's Independence Day, where there's the president who is like, okay, we're being attacked by aliens, the entire world's being attacked, so I got to be the one who steps up and gives the rally cry to go out there and defeat the aliens. And he's very like inspirational and motivational. So so I've talked about kind of the positive I guess versions of the fictional president, but there's also been some pretty terrible ones, or ones that are not so great. And there's what's it called? Like an Idiocracy. Like the president in Idiocracy is definitely not a president that we would want, because it's so over the top, it's so insane, and it's just like, is this actually a president? Oh my gosh. And then I just recently watched Don't Look Up, and Meryl Streep plays a president that she is realistic in one way, because of the way in which she treats the news that the world is possibly going to end, but she also is in a way very selfish, because she's been so wrapped up in herself and her candidacy that it's like she kind of forgets the people around her, so to speak, especially like family members and stuff like that. So that's not an idealized version of a president role. And those are on the fictional side, but there's films like All the President's Men, that was not necessarily like, it was about President Nixon, but it was about the whole Watergate scandal, and about the reporters who were trying to figure out what was going on. And so, in a way, it was about a president without it actually being about the president. It was more about the journalists who were investigating what happened. And, so there are so many different ways in which this position of power in the real world is interpreted and can be put on screen. And sometimes it can be like a really great thing. I mean, heck, even on like House of Cards, I mean, that's a very no holds barred, kind of like just almost like a sinister kind of way in which they show what it's like in Washington, and what it's like to run for president, and what it takes to kind of reach that position of being president. There's so much that I don't know how much of it necessarily is real, but when you watch it, you're kind of it's in some ways quite a terrifying look at what politics is like in Washington. So that's so I think what I really appreciate about having the freedom to either write a president character that is very idealized, very much is like man or woman of the of the people, is that, well, for one, depending on what your story is, it allows you to have some exposition. Like a president character always has to say something very direct. Like they're usually sitting at their desk, they're addressing the nation. And that's a great way to put in exposition to further your plot if you need to. I mean, it happens all the time in like disaster movies. They have the press conference and the president like steps up to the podium and says, this is what's happening. We have a meteor, or we have a flood, or we have like any number of disasters. We have a war going on, whatever. And it allows for for us as screenwriters to put a scene like that in there to tell the audience what is actually happening. And that really all depends on if, like we usually get to show what happens first before we get to that scene. But you don't necessarily have to. Like it can be, you can start the film off with, like in the way that like Patton started off with, like General Patton, giving a speech at the beginning of the film. Like there was no, like it's all about the speech setting up, this film. And you could do the same thing with, like the character of a president. So that in a sense, it kind of gives us a structure. It allows us to use exposition to our advantage. It allows us to get information to the audience to move the story forward. And that's like I as much as we kind of look down on exposition, it is a nice tool to have, especially when it will take a lot longer to like show something happening, or to to have to have many scenes in which you're kind of laying out what's happening. If you can just have like something happen, some disaster, have some kind of like catalyst happen, and then the next scene is the reaction to that catalyst, then it allows for some momentum to kind of like to have some momentum in the story where the audience is caught up, and then you go into the solution. You go into what the big plan is supposed to be, so that as a writer you can start picking it apart. You can start finding ways in which the government has a plan to do something, and you're like, you get to as a writer say, well, okay, this is what their plan is, and now let's see how we can throw as many obstacles in their way to make sure that it doesn't happen. Hey, kind of like real government, right? It's like, what are you going to do? Anyway, so, from a writing standpoint, it can be a really fun way to incorporate such a powerful character, especially because you can either play them as like a, sort of a puppet to other forces, like other things that are happening around them, like other interests, or you can have them be very idealized and that they are there to kind of set their own agenda to be a force for change and for positivity, and butting up against the system, like the man against the system. And the man happens to be the president, who is inside the system, who's trying to change the system. That's really exciting too. Like I think especially now, like having stories about people inside the system who are trying to change it, I think is in a way kind of needed. Like there's a sense that the system that we have, the powers that be, whoever is running the country, whatever country you're in, there's this sense of like, well, they don't care about the people, and there's no way that anything is going to change. And it's been decades of like disaster after disaster, and there's like especially in the last couple of years, in the way that like governments have responded to the pandemic and stuff like that. It's kind of opened up the eyes to a lot of people that maybe this government that we've been relying upon, and the president that we've been listening to hasn't necessarily been able to deliver exactly what it is they said they were going to deliver. And to put that that trust in the system back into like a film, to not have such a a cynical look at the systems that we have, or if there is this cynical kind of like look at it, that having somebody who's in that system who can the story can be about them trying to change it, or realizing that that something needs to be changed. And maybe that's the great tragedy of the modern world, is that we have a system that runs regardless of who's in it, and so it's going to do what it's going to do, and it's going to it's impartial to the pain of the masses, because it's just it's on this trajectory, and it just keeps going because that's just what it does. And then putting somebody in there who's idealized, who sees that it's on a trajectory towards something really bad, and then trying to change it, and then ultimately having them fail because the system is bigger than them. I mean, that's kind of a big tragedy that you could put into your story if you wanted to. But I mean, today's President's Day in the States, so I don't want to think about necessarily the bad things, but it's just an appreciation that we have a system that was set up, and we have checks and balances, and we have the different houses to work through like passing laws and making legislation. It's a big thing, and it's very complicated, and I don't envy anybody who has to deal with that kind of pressure. I'm sure it's a lot of pressure. But when it comes to fiction, like I said before, it's the character of the president is an opportunity to reflect what the world is, essentially. Like if you're looking for a character in which you could try to encapsulate the world that you're trying to make, like if it's the world of the past or the world of the future, you can kind of show through that character like where society is at, or where the society that you're trying to create is at. And to be fair, it usually is about like the real world, but it doesn't have to be. You could have a made up world. I mean, heck, in Star Wars they had a Senate. They had a whole government system set up. They had ambassadors. They had just all of this stuff that we have in our real world, just reflected in this fantasy story, in this science fiction story. And you can do that too. Like you can take that character and you can place them as the president of whatever society, and then have them deal with the conflicts and the troubles of that role there. Or if it's something where you want to, have it be a comedy, and say it's like this alien world, and there's this president who or like, but maybe it could be like a human makes their way onto like an alien world, and he sets up the government because he sees all this chaos, and they go along with it, and then he ends up being president, and then I don't know. There's many possibilities. Not all of them are great, but I mean there are possibilities. So in celebration of like President's Day, I started to think about all of the different versions of at least the American president in film, and how growing up there were the inspirational figures, the ones that you just kind of when you're watching the film, you're just like, yeah, I like. They always had an inspirational speech, and it was just like, yeah, like you felt energized, you felt good. Like it didn't have to be something where it felt good to be like an American, but you felt you felt good for whatever the situation was, because you were like, wow, that guy or that gal is really just mobilizing the team. They're inspiring them to go to great lengths to give up their lives in certain films and stuff like that, or in a lot of films. Usually it was like we need to take care of this, not all of us are going to come back, like kind of speeches. And those were riveting. Those were good, and they were well acted for the most part. Like they got actors who could deliver that gravitas, that could get you fired up as you were watching it in the audience. And that was great. That was really cool. And like I said, there were other presidents that were supposed to be the bad guys, or they were supposed to be not as great, and so they just played a different key role in the narrative. So yeah, if you have time today, if you feel like watching a movie that has a president in it, like I said, there's the American president, there's Dave. If you're looking for something that's kind of like like a satire, there's like Wag the Dog, which is very satirical about like a president starting a fake war. That's always like, I mean, it at the time it came out, it was like a funny concept. There's like Primary Colors, which was another good one, and then there's the classics like All the President's Men. What other ones? I mean, there's been like biopics on Nixon, or if you want to watch Lincoln, or there's just any number of them. There's also, this wasn't specifically about, obviously about a president, but presidents were involved. You could watch Hamilton. That's like another way in which you could, kind of celebrate the day if you want to do that. It's more about Alexander Hamilton, obviously, but there is George Washington, and he was our first president. So you can always watch that if you like. So yeah, let me know what you what you end up watching. If you watch anything, if you have any like recommendations that I didn't mention, you can email me, or I have a live stream on Tuesdays at 4:00 Pacific time in the US. So you can come there and put your question in the chat, and then we can talk about it. Or any number of ways. You can reach me, and I'm on almost all the social media stuff. So there it is. All right, guys. I hope you have a great day or night, or whenever you happen to be listening to this. And I will talk to you on the next one. If you'd like to connect with me, there is an email for the podcast. It's tentative.title.with.tim.podcast @gmail.com. There's also a Twitter account. The handle is @title_Tim. There's also a Facebook page where you can post questions, or you can connect with me there. Thank you guys for listening. I'll talk to you on the next one.